Hey everybody, it's Videobob, and I'm following up on the video I did about my 2013 Mac Pro desktop Trashcan, as it's called. So I talked about how I bought basically a used one of these Mac Pros with the minimalist stuff in it and then upgraded it. So at the end of this video, there'll be a link so that you can go back and watch that video if you didn't see it. Or I'll put that link in the description. But basically the concept was, I was looking at the new iMac Pro, which starts at $5,000, a fully optioned MacBook Pro, which can run you $7,000 or $8,000, the new Mac Mini, which just doesn't seem to hold up to what I need it to do. And I was looking at all my upgrade options because I want to start doing 4K edited video for this YouTube channel. I want to get back into video production and things like I used to. And my older MacBook Pro just wasn't cutting it for me. I mean, it did HD great, but when you drop 4K on that thing, it just kicked its ass. So I talked to all my different Mac friends. A lot of people were suggesting to me that I build one of the old-fashioned big aluminum Mac Pros. I wish they would give Apple, I wish they would give their stuff different names. They call everything the same name. Like I just bought an iPad Pro. I already had an iPad Pro. Which iPad Pro? Well, there's the iPad Pro, then the other iPad Pro. Then they came out with a new iPad Pro. Now they just came out with 2 more iPad Pros. So Mac Pro, the Trashcan. I think that this is a great unit. Now, I've been using it and I rendered some video in it. Let me tell you, this thing becomes a space heater. A plume of hot air bellows out of the top of this thing. I definitely can tell you that when summertime comes and I'm trying to cool this room down, there's going to be extra heat coming out of that thing. This thing is small, but it literally is a small space heater. If you were to take like a little small desktop space heater and put it next to this thing, you probably get about the same kind of numbers out of it. I took a little temperature probe that I had and I stuck it down in there while I was rendering, and I was getting something like 150 degrees out of the thing. So it's putting out some hot air. Now, I know that that's a good thing because that means thermally, the design, the funnel design is sucking the air out and pushing that hot air right out the top and cooling it off. But I wanted to go a step further. So what I did was I ordered a very cheap small laptop cooling pedestal. I'll put a link to some of those in the description below if you want to order one kind of like the one I got. But I got a very simple little pedestal that's made for a small laptop, had a large opening and a large quiet fan, has a little blue LED light in it. I don't care about that. And it runs off USB. But what I did was, rather than plugging the USB into the computer itself, drawing yet more power, I plugged it into the back of one of the USB ports on one of my Thunderbolt monitors, which are plugged into the wall. That way it wasn't drawing any more DC power off of the power supply, the built-in power supply that's in the Mac Pro. So that's one thing I did to help assist in the cooling. Not only does it elevate the thing off the ground a little bit and add for a little bit more space for airflow, I think just a pedestal alone would help. But it also has cool air being sucked in and blown up not only into the cooling area, but around the surface of the cover. You know what a lot of people don't realize about the design of this aluminum cover that makes contact over the entire body is that it is a giant heat sink. I think it would have been cool if they'd have just put fins around the thing. It'd been very difficult to hold and hard to clean, and I guess that's why they didn't do that. But that entire bell housing is a giant heat sink there to suck heat away from the unit. Works really well. Wanted to talk about a couple extra things that really don't have anything to do with the computer, but I did pick up the new Apple Magic Mouse 2. They call it a space gray. It's kind of black. I really like this mouse. Is it any different than the white one? No, but it just seems to go with the theme. I also wanted a lighted keyboard, which I already had, but the lighted keyboard that I had was like a gaming keyboard, and I wanted one that looked like the stock Mac one, but the stock Mac one doesn't light up, the wireless one. It's a very nice keyboard, very well made. So I found this one that's an aluminum keyboard. It's wireless Bluetooth, lets you have up to 4 devices on it, and it lights up. And, you know, when you hit the key, it lights up. After you stop typing a little while, the lights go out. Really interesting. Now, the funny thing is I just leave it plugged into the back of the monitor here just to keep it powered all the time. But I can unplug it, sit back in my chair and use it, and it works great. The only thing annoying about having a wireless keyboard is you generally have to tap it to wake it up. So you start to type something and you realize that you missed out, you're on your first letter. So you need to teach yourself to tap a key when you want to wake it up before you start using it. Another great thing about the Mac Pro Trashcan is it has a whole bunch of Thunderbolt display ports on the back. I have 2 of these Thunderbolt displays that I had with my old system, and I've got the double desktop thing going on here. But I also have over here out of view, what is this, a 50-inch Vizio 4K. There's an HDMI on the back of that thing. You can use this as the monitor. Actually, I was using this television as my monitor while I was setting it up, but you can set it up as a 3rd display or a 4th or a 5th or 6th display, whatever, or 7th display, whatever it is you want to use it for. So when I'm editing video, I'd put my editing window over here and then put my timeline and my other stuff over here. So that makes it really cool because I'm using a real TV and you're kind of getting to see what your product is going to look like on a regular television. And I think that is really cool. Let's see, what else did I want to talk about? I want to talk about how easy it was to set this thing up. You know, I argue with my my friends that are into PCs about Macs. They call me, I'm such a sheep because I like Macs. Well, I got to tell you, I've been working on PCs for a long time. You know, I used to be a technician for Gateway back in the late 90s, you know. I had a computer repair store back in the mid 90s where we built computer systems and I sold them out at the flea markets and stuff. Listen, I built a lot of computers in my day. And building a Windows computer, even today, it's just a pain in the ass. Let me tell you how gosh darn easy it is to build up a Mac. Now, before I talk about that, we'll talk about this Aura, the 4 terabyte SSD that I put in this thing. Now, you get this thing from I think OWC. It's the Aura 4 terabyte SSD. I'll put a link to it down below because as far as I know at this time, it is the biggest SSD that you can put into one of these things. Now, what they've done is they've taken two terabyte SSD little crackers, put them together on one board with a heat sink on it, and it plugs in. Now, you will have to do a little bit of a firmware update with some software. It's all on their website in order for the computer to recognize it properly in order to load the latest OS. But all it is really support for the little RAID card so that it sees it as one drive. But anyway, it only took a second and it worked fine. So here's what I was going to say about loading a Mac. Now, for those of you who know Macs that are on the level, you already know about this trick. But for those of you who've never built your own computer, you've only taken a new one out of the box and it was already set up, let me tell you how easy this is. You take your old hard drive out, or if you're starting from scratch, you put your new hard drive in, whatever hard drive that is. You boot up the computer, you hit Command R, you hold that down, and that starts up Internet Recovery. Now, you have the thing plugged into your LAN port, and it will automatically format the drive, download the latest operating system, and set the thing up for you automatically. It could not have been easier. When I think about all the times I had to set up a Windows PC and boot from a floppy, or boot from a CD, or boot from a partition drive, or boot from some kind of bootable device, and then go into MS-DOS, you know, and, you know, set up. I loaded Windows from floppy. That's how old I am. Okay, so this was the easiest setup I've ever seen of putting in a new hard drive as a master boot drive. Unbelievable, Mac. Awesome. I have not had a problem out of this thing. So I'm running 12 cores on this sucker, got 64 gigs of RAM, The reason I went with the 64 gig of RAM instead of the 128 that is potentially possible is because, for one thing, the 128 was a lot of money compared to the 64. And because it ran at a lower bus speed, it actually kind of lowers the speed of the system even though you have increased RAM. I just didn't feel like I needed it. And I had already spent like $4,000 on this system. I didn't feel like spending an additional $600 on it. But hey, you know, compared to what I would have spent, if you do it the way that I'm telling you to do it, and if you go back and watch that other video, get yourself a used 2013 5-year-old Mac Pro desktop trash can. Buy yourself, get the most minimalist, basic, cheapest one you can, with the exception of this one thing. This is what I did. I got mine. I had the smallest hard drive, the smallest memory, the smallest CPU, but mine had the AMD 700, had the highest GPU card. Get the best GPU card you can, because that's not something you can easily upgrade. But you can easily get the 12-core processor. You can easily get the 64 gigs of RAM, and you can easily upgrade the SSD now. And like I said, for $4,000, I put together what looks to me like a brand new system, 12-core, 64 gig of RAM with a 4 terabyte SSD. If you went into the Mac store right now, you wouldn't even be able to buy a system with that on it. And there, you would spend $4,000 getting out the door with one of their more basic models. So this is a computer, other than the cooling fan, has no moving parts. What's going to go bad on it? If it hasn't failed in a couple of years, it's not gonna, okay? And even if it does, the stuff is available for it, and not that expensive in the grand scheme of things. Whereas if you had bought, you know, a Mac Mini, the parts are soldered onto the board. Same thing with the MacBook Pro. You can't really go in there and fish around and start changing things around. The new iMac Pro, you can a little bit, but gosh darn, $5,000 to start with the base model, $15,000 fully optioned. That's a brand new car. You can go down to the car lot and get a Nissan Altima for $15,000, or whatever. I'm like, that's a lot of money for an iMac. And quite frankly, you know, I'm used to spending $4,000 or $5,000 on a computer. The last major system that I built when I was still on Windows was I was editing on the NewTek Video Toaster 5 system, which ran on Windows NT. I was running it on XP Pro, and I built that system. I had spent about $6,000 on that system. And at the time I built it, which was early 2000. I think I built that one about 2005. And that computer lasted me, you know, almost 10 years I ran on that thing. And that was one hell of a system, because I was still using a lot of analog stuff. I have, what you don't see here is I have Betacam SP decks, 3/4 SP decks, Super VHS, DV Cam, High 8. You know, I have every kind of video format pretty much spanning back 30, 40 years. Because I do a lot of transfers and things. Don't send me a tape. So that's not what I do for a living. But anyway, so I was using an analog component system that also had SDI and DV support. But the NewTek toaster system just wasn't cut out for HD. It just couldn't handle it. And I ended up buying a 2011 MacBook Pro 17-inch top of the line unit. This was a almost $5,000 laptop. Still have it sitting right over there. And that's what I used that thing from 2011 to now, until I replaced it with this. I had been operating on this laptop mounted in a hinge dock vertically like that, and I never even really used it as a laptop. It was hooked up to these 2 Thunderbolt monitors, and then I had an 8 terabyte RAID, and that's what I was using. And it worked great, and still works great, and it'll do HD all day long, and it's badass. And I'd replaced the mechanical hard drive with SSDs. It had 2 terabytes of SSD. It was a pretty kick-ass laptop, even by today's standards, as a 4-core. But it maxes out at 16 gigs of RAM, and when it comes to processing 4K video, it was kicking its ass. It took me 24 hours to render out a 30-minute video. Seriously? Wasn't going to happen. Did HD relatively almost real time, but something about that 4K, it requires a processing engine and a GPU that it just can't handle. This sumbitch, I'm pretty happy with when it comes to the money. And I know people are going to tell me, you should wait till the new, next year they're going to come out with a new Mac Pro. Well, you know what? They probably will. And it's probably going to be badass. And you know how much it's going to cost? It's going to cost as much as a fucking Ferrari. Because if this thing base model is like $4,000, imagine what that thing is going to be. It's going to start at least $5,000 base. You're going to spend 20 grand out the door getting that thing fully chopped out, hot rodded with the big tires on it. You know what I mean? So I'm like, I'm not going to be able to afford one of those for a while. Maybe if the YouTube channel really takes off and you guys subscribe and keep commenting and liking the videos like you've been doing, maybe I can afford it. But until then, I'm stuck going to stick with this thing. So this was just a follow-up. Sorry it wasn't more graphical. It was more R-rated. But, you know, that's basically what my advice is for the aspiring video editors out there. Unless you just have to have a portable editing solution that you're editing on a plane, a train, or an automobile, or at school, or whatever, then by all means, go get yourself a MacBook Pro and throw all the money at it you want. I was looking at MacBook Pros last night. I just bought the new iPad Pro, the 11-inch. And I just ordered it last night. Haven't got it yet. And it was, you know, over $1,000. And I didn't even get the top of the line one. You know, I think, well, what did I get? I got a 256 gigabyte Wi-Fi plus cellular. And it was 1,000 whatever. But it's crazy what they're getting for this stuff. And I can't believe I suckered myself into buying it. Because I already have the what is it, the 9-inch, you know, the 9.7-inch iPad Pro. But it's got the button on it and everything. And I was at the Apple store. I was looking at that thing. And I was like, that thing is pretty gosh darn nice. So I ordered it. So this is for sale. This is, I'll make somebody a good deal on this one if you want this one. I'll put it on my eBay. I'll put the link to that. But anyway, I know my desk is a mess. Don't comment and tell me my desk is a mess. I know. I'm a genius, and geniuses have messy desks. Anyway, what the fuck was I saying? I don't remember. I ordered the new iPad Pro. Oh, I was just window shopping on Apple's website at the MacBook Pro, and I was like, let's just see what it would cost. Option out, like, yeah, I know you do this. I know you've done this. You go on there, and you're like, let's just see what it would be. Let's just see. I want that and that, and you add everything on there, and I was like, holy shit, it was almost $8,000 for a MacBook Pro! Are you out of your fucking minds? No. Who are these people? Who are these people who are buying $8,000 MacBook Pros? That's a pretty shitty Seinfeld. I tried. But I've been on a hiatus for the last 10 years. You know, not to toot my own horn, but I was a pretty well-known video guy. Well, I'm Videobob. The reason I've been Videobob since 1992 is because I've made hundreds and hundreds of music videos. You probably spotted that up there in the corner. You know, I did videos for MTV. I produced television shows. I used to produce NWA, Southwest Wrestling. Did voiceovers. You know, I've acted in movies. Of course, I had my own television show. Most of you know that. But long before that, I worked as a chief engineer for a television network called American Independent Network that became the Hispanic Television Network, which is now Sorpresa. And you know, I was literally run out of that place because it became a Spanish television, and I couldn't work there because I didn't speak Spanish. But I helped basically start that entire network and built that studio. I did infomercials, I did commercials, hundreds and hundreds of commercials, music videos. I did videos for Gwar, Typo Negative, Megadeth. And of course, everybody knows I work for my buddy Vinnie Paul from Pantera. And I did Hell Yeah's, some of Hell Yeah's music videos, their DVDs, the Hell Yeah Live from Dallas, and the Below the Belt DVD, and helped you know, put out Dime Vision and all the stuff that I did at Big Vin Records. I was pretty much the only employee there, myself and another guy named Brian, and we worked for Vinnie Paul. And we put out some amazing stuff. And so basically what I'm saying is I did all this great video stuff, and about 10 years ago, I stopped because in 2009, I opened up a restaurant in downtown Dallas. I did that for a year, then I closed that, and then I opened up the Bob's Prop Shop, and I've been basically selling on eBay since 1998. So I make my money selling online. And we started doing the cards, and we did the TV show, and one thing led to another, and I just got out of, like, the video world just kind of went away from me. And I kind of stopped doing video because it's not that I forgot, but it just got away from me. My cameras got out of date, and my editing stuff got out of date, and everything got out of date. And almost all of the videos that you've seen, just like this one right now, is shot on my iPhone. And so I decided this year I'm going to get back into video. So built the computer. I just bought the new GoPro 7 Black. I'm about to pick up another 4K video camera, but a lot of this stuff I'm probably just going to shoot on my phone. I still have my wireless microphones and lighting and other stuff that I had left over from my other stuff. And by the way, I need to make a whole video about this, but the very first thing I bought for this was I bought Final Cut Pro. And one of the first times that I've paid for software that I didn't rip off of some torrent or something. I paid for it right from the Apple Store because I wanted a total legitimate copy. And I had so many friends tell me, you should check out the Adobe Premiere. And I go, dude, I'm not paying a monthly fee in perpetuity to have this software. Fuck that. Fuck you, Adobe. So I bought Final Cut Pro, $300. And let me tell you, within a couple of minutes, I was editing, and I put together my first video with it, and it came out great. So simple, so easy to use, and integrates perfectly. It's made for this computer. It's made to run on these Apple devices. It is optimized in every way to work with their proprietary stuff, their GPUs, their processors, their everything, and it worked seamlessly without a problem. When I used to use other editors, like anybody who's ever used Adobe Premiere knows this motion. That's Control-Save, Control-Save, click, Control-Save, click, Control-Save, crash. Oh, shit, reboot. Oh, did it save? No, I lost 3 of them. Okay, I got to do that again. Fuck Windows. I don't know how anybody just, I can't even stand the thought of thinking about having to use Windows. So yeah, I'm a Mac guy. Anyway, so that's some of my experience. I'll put out some more videos a little bit later as I get a little bit more polished with this thing, because as I get better with Final Cut Pro, as I start working with the GoPro cameras, I also have the DJI Mavic drone. I have a lot of other really cool video stuff. And I think that my knowledge of old school video is going to come into play with some of the new school guys, because there's a lot of guys, they've only ever used a selfie stick, and maybe they've used a drone, but they've never used a professional jib and crane. They've never had to shade cameras. They've never had to use umbilical cord cameras. They probably don't even know what that is. They've never had to deal with that kind of stuff. And so I'm really amazed with the way things are working now. The way things are processed and the way things are done is completely different from the way I used to do it. I had been submitted for an engineering Emmy back in 2004 for developing one of the longest cable run digital, analog to digital transfer systems that I worked with Marker Tech, where we figured out how to send video over Cat5 because we needed to be able to send video 1,000 feet. And up until then, you could only send video 100 meters, 330 feet, and we developed a system of encoding the video digitally and sending it over Cat5. This was groundbreaking at that point. And I had built a mobile production studio truck in 2004 out of one of the first Sprinter vans that was available in the country, and of the stretch super tall 3500s. And, we had the ability to run 4 cameras over 4,000 feet in total, doing live switching, recorded to hard drive, with the ability to simulcast. That was cutting edge shit back then. But now people can just broadcast live from their phone in high definition. It's crazy. So all of that's coming up more. So I promised you some video links and some other things down in the description. If you watch this long, bless you. Thanks for hanging out with me. I'm Videobob. And I'll see you on the next video. There's going to be a whole lot more. Please subscribe. We're almost to 20,000 subscribers as of this video, and I assure you that there's going to be some amazing shit coming your way on this channel. Now that I've fired up this system again, we're going to be putting a little bit more work into our production, not to mention all the things that are about to be happening. As for those of you who know that I build these movie cars, we build the Back to the Future car, we build the Ghostbusters car. They just announced they're going to be doing Ghostbusters 3, and you know I'm going to be a busy guy coming up in the next 2 years doing all our Ghostbuster stuff. So I will see you on YouTube. Thanks for hanging out with me. I'm Videobob.